Imagine being kidnapped and being surgically transformed into a walrus, or finding a clown costume to wear for your son's birthday party, but then you realize the costume won't come off, no matter how hard you try, and it starts changing you. Welcome to body horror. Body horror is a subgenre of horror that focuses on the degradation, mutation, or violation of the human body. It plays on the innate fears people have about losing control over their own bodies, undergoing unwanted transformations, or facing the fragility and vulnerability of their physical forms. Films and stories in this genre often showcase graphic and unsettling portrayals of bodily changes, infections, or disfigurements. The intention here is to evoke a discomfort or a disgust or a fear from the audience. There's a lot of body horror out there, and that's what we're going to talk about today. An iceberg is where stuff at the top that we're going to talk about first is more well known, and the further we get, the more obscure it's going to get. Alright? Ready? Let's go. Alright, hey, so I already tried uploading this video and I got a bunch of copyright strikes because I'm showing movie footage. So if you see any logos or anything like that on screen, that is why, to cover up so I don't get copyright stricken. Alright guys, enjoy the video. District 9 is a sci-fi movie set in an alternate history where an alien ship has come to rest over Johannesburg, South Africa. The extraterrestrials, who are called prawns, which by the way is like a slur in this movie because the whole movie is an allegory for racism. But anyways, they live in a government camp called District 9. The body horror starts when a guy gets like spit on or something by one of the aliens and gets turned into one gross thing. He starts like craving cat food, which is scary for me because now I think I might be an alien if that's one of the symptoms. The Thing is a horror sci-fi movie from 1982. It's about a research team in Antarctica that encounters a shape-shifting alien that assumes the appearance of his victims. So a lot of the horror comes from like they can't tell who's actually a human and who's an alien. There's also a prequel released in 2011 that explains the events leading up to the 1982 film. The body horror in this one is, well, when the alien transforms and stuff, it can mess up the victim. Like, look at some of these scenes. Annihilation is a sci-fi movie about Lena, a biologist and former soldier, who joins a mission to uncover what happened to her husband inside Area X, aka the Shimmer. The Shimmer is a sinister and mysterious phenomenon that is expanding across the American coastline, and once inside, the expedition discovers a world of mutated landscapes and creatures, as dangerous as it is beautiful, that threatens both their lives and their sanity. The Shimmer, this mysterious alien area, basically takes DNA from various organisms, jumbles it up, and then produces some really bizarre stuff. It's like a science experiment on steroids. Now, there's this horrifying guy in the wall scene. As the team ventures deeper into the Shimmer, they come across a disused military facility where they find a man who has been overtaken by a kind of fungal growth. But this isn't just a guy with fungus on him, it looks like he's exploded from the inside out, with the fungus spreading everywhere, consuming and integrating with him. His body is twisted into the wall, and he's become part of the structure. It's gruesome, but also, like, fascinating. Planet Terror is a Robert Rodriguez film. I'm sure we all know Robert Rodriguez by now. He's the Spy Kids, Shark Boy, and Lava Girl guy. So first with this movie we have The Infected. It's a bioweapon which was intended to turn the exposed into mindless soldiers, but instead it turns them into pus-oozing, festering, zombie-like creatures. Their bodies decay and they have boils and lesions. And let's not forget these like really grotesque transformations. This is really gross. And then we have the main character, Cherry, who starts the film as a go-go dancer but becomes one of the most iconic images of body horror in this movie. After a gruesome encounter with the infected, she loses her leg, but being the cool person she is, Cherry doesn't let that slow her down. She ends up with a machine gun as a prosthetic leg. It's both campy and a fantastic visualization of body modification, taking a traumatic experience and turning it into empowerment in the most grindhouse way possible. And finally, we have the coolest and most disturbing one, the doctor's experiments. Dr. William Block and his anesthesiologist wife, Dakota, add another layer of body horror to this movie. Dr. Block, growing increasingly deranged due to the effects of the bioweapon, conducts gruesome experiments and procedures on the infected and uninfected alike. His twisted medical practices play into classic fears of medical horror and body mutilation. Hey, if you're still here, you probably like me at least a little bit, so go down and follow my Instagram. I'll be posting updates on new videos and my life, etc. Go give me a follow, and yeah, back into the video. Akira, an absolute titan in the world of anime. Do you get it? Do you see what I did there with that? Do you get the joke? See, there's this famous anime called Attack on Titan. This movie is set in Neo-Tokyo, a city rebuilt after a mysterious explosion. The central body horror elements revolve around Tetsuo Shima, a member of a biker gang, and then after a motorcycle accident, Tetsuo starts to exhibit powerful psychic abilities, similar to the mysterious child, Akira, who caused Tokyo's initial destruction. As Tetsuo's powers grow, he struggles to control them, with one of the most terrifying scenes being when his arm mutates into a massive writhing mass of metal and flesh and machinery. It's this uncontrollable, pulsating growth that becomes a horrifying thing. And then also there are these espers who are children with psychic abilities, and their appearance alone touches on the theme of body horror. They have prematurely aged, like wrinkled faces on child-sized bodies, a result of an experiment that was done on them. Without giving away too much, let's just say that by the end of the film, Tetsuo's transformation takes on epic proportions. The uncontrollable growth and mutation of his body become the film's central horror, swallowing everything in his path and challenging his friends to find a way to save him and Neo-Tokyo from complete destruction. Now, what I like about the body horror in Akira specifically is that it's not just for shock value like a lot of other entries on here. Not that's a bad thing, but I just like how in Akira, the body horror is also like symbolic of the uncontrollable nature of progress and power, you know? Like Tetsuo's body rebelling and growing in ways he can't control kind of mirrors how Neo-Tokyo is rapidly growing and how the political powers at play can't even control the forces that they've awakened. In the 1986 version of The Fly, Jeff Goldblum plays a smart but quirky scientist named Seth Brundle. He's working on a machine that can teleport things, but one day a fly gets inside the machine with him and things go terribly wrong. After this, he starts changing into a scary mix of man and fly, which he calls the Brundlefly. His change happens slowly, making it even scarier. At first, he just gets a bit stronger and looks a little different, but then his body starts to tear apart, and it's not just the physical change that's horrifying. It's also how he feels inside and the fear and sadness he goes through here, like it's like disturbing to watch. The movie's about things like getting sick and getting old and how delicate our bodies are. And then in the sequel, The Fly 2, we meet Martin, who is Seth Brundle's son. Because of what happened in the first film, Martin has some weird genes. He starts off looking pretty normal, but he grows up really fast, and then he also later turns into a fly-like creature again. The Skin I Live In by Pedro Almodovar is a freaky mix of body horror and mind games. Antonio Banderas plays Dr. Robert Ledgard, a super smart skin doctor. He's been through a lot and now he has made a special skin that can't get burned or hurt. But things get really creepy when we find out he's testing the skin on a woman, Vera, and he's keeping her locked up in his house. The story gets darker when we find out more about why Vera is there and who she really is. So yeah, Doctor kidnaps a girl to test stuff on her and test this like miracle skin that's like a prison. Hellraiser revolves around this creepy puzzle box called the Lament Configuration. It's not just for fun though. When you solve it, a door to another world opens, and that's where the Cenobites come in, with their leader, Pinhead. These aren't your regular scary monsters, they're super into pain and pleasure, sometimes mixing them up. Then there's Frank. He cracks the puzzle hoping for some wild fun, but instead gets more than he bargained for with the Cenobites. He somehow escapes their world, but he's missing his skin and he looks like this. Super gross. To get back to normal, he needs to take life from others, which is just as scary as it sounds. And then Julia, who's got a thing for Frank, does some pretty terrible stuff because she's so obsessed with him. It just shows how crazy and evil people can get when they're super into someone. Eraserhead is a movie about Henry Spencer, a quiet guy living in a really gloomy and industrial-looking place. Things get weird when Henry finds out he's become a dad with his girlfriend Mary, but their baby isn't like any baby you've seen before. It looks more like a creepy alien than a human, and it won't stop crying. This weird-looking baby becomes the main thing that stresses Henry out. The place where Henry lives adds to the creepiness here. Everything is dirty, noisy, and looks like it's falling apart. It's like the whole world is just sick and old, just like how the baby looks. There's a super weird dream where Henry's head gets chopped off and his baby's head takes its place. His actual head ends up in a weird factory where they use his brain to make erasers for pencils. It's all really strange and gross, but it shows how freaked out Henry is about being a dad and where he fits in the world. There are also like other weird stuff in the movie, like a lady with puffy cheeks who sings in a radiator, and people who suddenly get weird lumps in their skin. The people in the movie always look and act in strange and sometimes scary ways. Eraserhead was directed by David Lynch, who is like one of the best of all time, and he's really good at doing this like nuanced, subtle stuff. So I'm really glad that this ended up being on this iceberg because I love David Lynch, and I think this is really cool how he doesn't really use gore and just uses like just other kinds of weird body horror to showcase these like deeper themes, you know, of like fear and worry and stress. It's really interesting here. I'm glad it's here. An American Werewolf in London by John Landis is a killer mix of scares and laughs, and it's got one of the most memorable werewolf change scenes ever. David Kessler and his buddy Jack are two Americans traveling around England. Things get really bad when they get attacked by a werewolf. Jack doesn't make it, but David does, only now he's got this ancient curse where he's gonna turn into a werewolf. The big scene that everybody talks about is when David turns into a werewolf. Instead of just cutting away or making it quick, the movie shows every painful bit. David's body stretches, cracks, and grows fur everywhere. His face even reshapes into a wolf's snout. It looks super painful, and because they used real makeup and effects, shout out to Rick Baker for the amazing job here. It looks really real and intense. But the movie isn't just about turning into a werewolf. Jack keeps showing up looking more and more like a zombie each time to warn David, and it's gross because Jack's skin and flesh keep like rotting. Splice is a different spin on the old story about when scientists go too far and mess with nature. It dives deep into the scary side of mixing genes and playing with life's building blocks. Clive and Elsa are smart scientists. Their job is to mix DNA from different animals to come up with new mixed up creatures. Why? They want to make medical breakthroughs. But they get a big idea to add human DNA into the mix, and that's how Drin is born. She looks kinda human, but also, you know, a little different. A big part of the movie's scariness is just watching Drin grow and change. She starts like a sort of water creature and then turns into this mix of different animals. Like, she's got bird feet, but a sharp tail, and she has a face that's like kind of human. As she grows and changes into an adult, it gets pretty intense and creepy. Overload, which was directed by Julius Avery and it was backed by J.J. Abrams, is like a World War II movie mixed with some super creepy horror. Think of it as soldiers meeting freaky zombies. Right before D-Day, some American soldiers have to knock out this big German radio thing in an old church. But when they get to the town, they find the Nazis are up to some really messed up stuff. Down under the church, this evil Nazi guy, Captain Waffner, is running a creepy lab. They're testing on the local people and even some of their own guys. Why, you might ask? They're trying to make zombie super soldiers with this weird juice. And this juice is definitely weird. When people get this juice in them, they don't just turn into regular zombies. They become these wild, angry monsters. They look all like messed up with bones sticking out and veins popping and their skin changing all the time. There's this one part with the guy's back that's super gross, but you know, you can't look away. Martyrs is really good. It's a 2008 French horror movie by Pascal Laguerre, and it isn't just known for its shock value, but it's often talked about because it's one of the most hard to watch movies from the new French extremity movement. It's more than a film, it's like a heavy trip that messes with your head and your eyes. The movie kicks off with a little girl, Lucy, getting away from a nightmare of being tortured. Fast forward, and Lucy, still messed up from her past and hell-bent on getting back at those who hurt her, hunts down her torturers with her best friend Anna. But things actually get way worse. They find a secret group who are all about finding enlightenment through torturing young women to the extreme, hoping to get a peek at the afterlife. The torture scenes in Martyrs are super rough, and at points, you might need to look away. These women go through hell because the secret society thinks that the insane pain and suffering will get them to a state of enlightenment, letting them see again like what comes after death. It's gruesome, and the girls' bodies go through a real-life nightmare, really showing what pain a person can live through. But the real scary stuff isn't just the physical horror, it's the mind games. The people in the secret society truly believe that what they're doing is holy. Now, at the start of this movie, the body horror is all about Lucy's past horror stuff. She was heavily tortured as a kid, all in the name of this sick experiment, and then even after she gets away, she's covered in scars. Then the story moves to Anna as well, and it becomes a full-on horror show. She's put through a heart-wrenching ordeal, being tortured methodically and cruelly, all with the aim to strip away her humanity and turn her into a beacon of pure pain. The things they do to her are clinical and emotionless. Anna's body is turned into a map of pain and humiliation. It's an awful showcase of how much the human body can go through, but also kind of a nod to the spirit's ability to keep going, because she keeps going through all of this. But yeah, Martyrs is great. I spent a little bit extra time on that one because it's a really good movie. Yeah. Videodrome is a horror movie made by David Cronenberg that goes deep into how media and tech and watching too much violence can affect us. Cronenberg, who's a big name in the horror scene, especially body horror, like he's gonna come up a lot more later on, uses this film to show how media can really mess with our heads and our bodies. The movie is about Max Wren, a guy who runs a kind of sketchy TV channel. He finds a show called Videodrome that's all about extreme violence and torture. It feels so real that Max gets hooked. But there's a twist. The show actually causes brain tumors and makes people see some wild stuff. There's this crazy scene later on where his stomach turns into something like a VCR, and when tapes get put in, they control him. As Max gets more into the show, the changes get even wilder. At one point, his hand becomes one with a gun, showing how violence on screen can become a part of who we are. Now this one, the thing is trying to say, I don't know if I agree with 100%, like every kid ever grew up on COD, and like John Wick, I don't think they're gonna go kill anybody, but I mean, it's scary. Slither is a 2006 horror comedy film directed by James Gunn, who would later gain significant fame for directing the Guardians of the Galaxy series. With a really unique blend of dark humor and body horror, Slither pays homage to classic 1980s horror films while also carving out really its own unique space in the genre. Set in the small town of Wheelsey, South Carolina, the film kicks off with a meteorite crash landing nearby. This isn't just any meteorite, though. It carries with it a malevolent extraterrestrial parasite. The town's wealthy and unfaithful resident, Grant, a deliberate play on names, becomes the first victim when he's infected by the alien organism. This is where the film begins its delightful descent into body horror. Grant's transformation is both grotesque and fascinating. The parasite takes over his body, altering his physical appearance and behavior, and then as it progresses, Grant becomes less and less human, his body bloating and sprouting tentacle-like appendages. The alien's life cycle and reproductive methods introduce even more body horror because it, impregnates a local woman, turning her into an enormous, grotesque breeding ground for thousands of little slugs. This woman's body inflates to an inhuman size, confined to a barn, constantly moaning in a mixture of pain and bizarre pleasure. These slugs then seek out other human hosts, entering their bodies through the mouth in a pretty forceful and unsettling way, taking over their minds and essentially turning them into zombies. Old is a 2021 psychological horror film made by M. Night Shyamalan, who, he's pretty known for his affinity for twist endings and unsettling narratives. Based on the graphic novel Sandcastle by Pierre Oscar Levy and Frederick Peters, the film's premise is deceptively simple, but its implications are deeply disturbing, especially in the realm of body horror. A group of tourists, including a family with young children, find themselves on a secluded beach during their vacation. But there's something deeply wrong with this beach. Time is super accelerated. The body horror in Old is derived from this, rapid aging process. Watching children grow into adults in the span of a day, and pregnant women giving birth hours after conception, and the body's rapid degeneration all play into innate human fears of growing old, losing one's youth and facing mortality. It's scary, like on more than just a gore level. And they get kind of creative with it too. Like there's this one scene where they have to like cut out a tumor of somebody, like really impromptu, just because, you know, a tumor grows and then boom, it's just gonna like kill them in like 5 minutes if they don't do anything about it. The Cabin Fever series, initiated by the 2002 film directed by Eli Roth, delves into the body horror genre with a gruesome exploration of a flesh-eating virus that afflicts a group of young vacationers. The first entry sets the tone for the series. A group of college friends go on a vacation to a remote cabin in the woods, anticipating some carefree time away from the strains of daily life, but unfortunately their trip quickly turns nightmarish when they come into contact with a hermit infected with a mysterious and highly contagious flesh-eating virus. As the disease spreads among the friends, they're forced to watch as their bodies slowly deteriorate in horrifyingly graphic detail. The body horror is the foreground here, with skin peeling and open sores and other grotesque manifestations of the virus taking center stage. The sequel, called Spring Fever, takes the gruesome premise of the original and situates it in a high school environment. After the events of the first film, the tainted water supply from the woods finds its way into bottled water, which is then distributed and consumed at a high school prom, and as you might expect, chaos and gory mayhem ensue. The body horror elements are amped up, with even more graphic depictions of the flesh-eating virus's effects. The third movie, Patient Zero, is a prequel. This installment takes us to a Caribbean island where a group of friends encounters an isolated research facility. Inside, scientists are studying the origins of the flesh-eating virus with a focus on a singular asymptomatic carrier known as Patient Zero. The 2016 Cabin Fever, the fourth one that was made, is interestingly not a continuation, but it's just a direct remake of the 2002 original, using Eli Roth's original script. It revisits the story of the group of friends and their encounter with a deadly virus in the cabin, and it was just kind of a unnecessary remake, honestly, you know. The Human Centipede movies, made by Tom Six, are pretty famous in the horror world because they show the very shocking and gross scenes like this one. These movies really try to just surprise and shock the audience, and some people find them pretty interesting, and some people find them unsettling. The main idea of these films is about joining people together in a way that looks like a centipede. So first, let's talk about the first movie, The Human Centipede, first sequence. The first film introduces audiences to the deranged Dr. Hyder, a retired surgeon who once separated conjoined twins, but now harbors a far more sinister surgical ambition to connect people via their gastric system. He kidnaps 3 tourists and subjects them to this horrific procedure, creating a human centipede. The body horror is explicit and excruciating, focusing on the physical and psychological torture of the victims. Obviously, I mean, look at this. Next we have The Human Centipede 2, full sequence. This sequel takes a meta approach. The main character, Martin, is obsessed with the first Human Centipede movie and seeks to create his own centipede, but this time with 12 people. Unlike Dr. Hyder, Martin is not a surgeon, and his methods are even cruder and more brutal. The body horror here is amped up significantly, delving further into explicit content and, violence. Themes of obsession, insanity, and desperation are explored because, Martin is like devoid of any medical knowledge. So he mutilates and forcefully joins his victims together. And then the third one is The Human Centipede 3 final sequence. The last movie is set in a jail, and the jail's boss, after watching the first 2 movies, wants to punish the prisoners by turning them into a huge human centipede. So yeah, that's the basic rundown. The Ruins, a horror novel by Scott Smith that was later adapted into a 2008 film directed by Carter Smith, taps into a unique kind of body horror that intertwines the terror of nature gone awry with the inherent dread of ancient unknown spaces. The story follows a group of friends on vacation in Mexico who decide to visit an archaeological dig in a remote jungle. Their intrigue is piqued when they hear about a fellow tourist's brother who has gone missing after venturing to the same site. Upon arriving at the location, they discover an ancient Mayan temple covered in vines. However, the seemingly innocent expedition takes a dark turn when the locals force them to the top of the temple and won't let them leave. It becomes clear that the vines covering the temple aren't just regular plants. They're sentient, carnivorous, and have a taste for human flesh. The body horror in The Ruins is multifaceted. The vines have the terrifying ability to mimic sounds, including human voices, luring their prey and creating psychological torment for the group. More overtly horrifying, however, is the way the vines invade the human body. They enter through wounds or any other openings, growing and spreading beneath the skin, causing excruciating pain and grotesque disfigurement. The idea of something foreign taking root inside one's body and then growing and taking over touches on some really deep-rooted fears of infection and infestation that we've had, evolutionarily and since the beginning of time. The trapped tourists are forced to make increasingly desperate decisions as they attempt to extract the invasive plants from their bodies. And then this includes some deeply unsettling scenes of makeshift surgery as the characters resort to cutting into their own flesh to remove the encroaching vines. These moments of self-mutilation underscore the theme of depression in this movie. It's really, really emotionally and also physically just grotesque and hard to watch. Return of the Living Dead, directed by Dan O'Bannon and released in 1985, is a cult classic in the zombie horror genre. While it's derivative of George Romero's iconic Night of the Living Dead series, it stands on its own with a unique blend of horror and dark comedy, but most uniquely a punk rock aesthetic. The film kicks off at a medical supply warehouse where an employee shows a new worker a military canister containing a gas called trioxin, supposedly housing a dormant zombie. An accidental release of the gas not only reanimates the corpse inside, but also affects the nearby dead bodies and anatomy specimens in the warehouse. As the gas seeps into the atmosphere, it causes acid rain, which seeps into the local cemetery. This results in the reanimation of the interred bodies, and, chaos ensues. So first, there's this iconic tar man, a skeletal, dripping zombie that has become emblematic of this film. But more broadly, the zombies in this movie are significantly different from Romero's original concept of the undead. In this movie, they sprint and they talk, and most notably, they hunger specifically for brains. The craving is not just a mindless hunger, it's portrayed as an agonizing need to alleviate the pain of being dead, which kind of adds a unique twist to it, it makes it a little bit different and unique, Scanners, a 1981 film directed by David Cronenberg, I told you he'd come back up, is a highlight in the body horror category. Cronenberg is referred to as the king of body horror, and he often focuses on disturbing physical and mental transformations. And Scanners is no different. The movie is about scanners, people with psychic powers because of a drug their moms took when they were pregnant. These powers let scanners read minds, control people, and even harm them. The story follows Daryl Revick, a scanner trying to gather others like him to control everyone else. Another scanner, Cameron Vale, is trained to prevent this. One of the most memorable moments in Scanners is a scene where a psychic battle between two individuals ends in a dramatic head explosion. I wasn't ready for the trip that Tusk took me on. It's about a man named Wallace, a podcast host, who travels to Canada to interview an old sailor named Howard Howe. But things take a dark turn when Wallace realizes that Howe has some pretty twisted plans for him. When it comes to the body horror in Tusk, it's really about the sheer terror of transformation. Howe, with his bizarre walrus obsession, decides he wants to turn Wallace into, a human-walrus hybrid. As crazy as that sounds, seeing Wallace's slow transformation into this creature got under my skin. No pun intended. The surgeries, the changes, the loss of his humanity, it genuinely disturbed me. The idea of being so drastically changed against your will into something non-human, that's a nightmare. And for me, this movie really encapsulates that fear. But there's more to it, Wallace as a character was far from perfect. He was kind of a jerk, to be honest, and his transformation can be seen as this twisted form of justice or payback. By the end, the lines between who's the real monster get super blurry. This film made me ponder a lot about humanity and morals and the repercussions of our actions. And it hit me when it made me consider, what would I do in this situation? Ginger Snaps is a 2000 Canadian horror film directed by John Fawcett, centering on two teenage sisters, Bridget and Ginger Fitzgerald. These sisters, who share a deep bond, are both fascinated by death, often staging fake death scenes and taking photographs as a morbid hobby. However, their lives take a dramatic turn one night when Ginger is attacked by a mysterious creature. Following the attack, Ginger begins to exhibit some strange behaviors and physical changes, leading Bridget to believe that her sister is transforming into a werewolf. The body horror in Ginger Snaps is more than just the graphic transformation of a girl into a werewolf. Color Out of Space is a 2019 horror film directed by Richard Stanley, inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's short story. The narrative unfolds on the Gardner family's farmstead, which becomes ground zero for cosmic chaos after a meteorite crash lands there. This isn't just a rock, it dissolves, releasing an otherworldly color, a shimmering magenta that doesn't belong to any known spectrum. This color isn't benign, it's an entity with sinister intentions, and it wreaks havoc on everything in its path. The immediate transformations on the Gardner farm are both wondrous and eerie. The once familiar landscape now gleams with an alien radiance, While at first the changes seem almost magical, especially with the floor taking on vibrant hues, it soon becomes a nightmare. The farm's produce, although lush, turns inedible, and then animals like their alpacas mutate into unsettling forms, invoking pure body horror. Cargo is a 2017 post-apocalyptic horror film directed by Ben Howling and Yolanda Ramk. Set in Australia amidst a pandemic, the story revolves around Andy, played by Martin Freeman, who is desperately trying to ensure his infant daughter's safety. Infected by a virus that slowly turns his victims into violent, zombie-like creatures, Andy has limited time to find a safe place for his daughter before he succumbs to the infection. As the infection takes hold of Andy, we see the physical manifestations of the virus. His eyes gradually cloud over, blood oozes from his orifices, and his behavior starts becoming increasingly erratic and aggressive. This slow degradation serves as a ticking clock, heightening the film's tension. The Blob from 1988 is a sci-fi horror film directed by Chuck Russell, serving as a more graphic and updated retelling of the 1958 original. The premise is rather straightforward yet terrifying. A meteorite crashes near a small town, releasing a gelatinous organism that consumes everything it touches, growing larger and more menacing with every meal. The body horror in this version of The Blob is heightened considerably when compared to its 1958 counterpart. The Blob doesn't just consume its victims, it digests them in a display of gruesome detail. The very idea of being engulfed by an unfeeling, insatiable mass and being slowly dissolved is enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Throughout the movie, we're given close-up shots of the Blob's translucent body, where we see the half-digested, agonized faces of his victims, encapsulating the horrifying fate that awaits those caught by this creature. Splinter is a 2008 horror film directed by Toby Wilkins. The story kicks off with a couple, Seth and Polly, whose romantic getaway takes a dark turn when they're carjacked by an escaped convict and his drug-addicted girlfriend. However, these four characters soon find themselves trapped in a gas station, not by each other, but by a sinister parasitic organism that has a particularly gruesome way of propagating itself. The body horror here is both visceral and innovative. The parasite, which looks like splintered spikes or quills, infects its hosts by piercing their skin, and once inside, it begins to take over, converting the host's body in ways that defy the natural limits of human anatomy. Limbs twist and snap at odd angles, bodies are pulled and reshaped, and the resulting creature moves with a jarring, twitchy motion that is eerily unnatural. Even more horrifying is the way the parasite can reanimate and utilize dismembered body parts. There's something profoundly unsettling about seeing a detached hand scuttling around like a spider, driven by the parasite's will. It's like that Diary of a Wimpy Kid book where they watch The Hand, like the horror movie just called The Hand. Altered States follows a scientist named Eddie Jessup, who's deeply curious about human consciousness. He believes that there are other states of existence that can be tapped into by using a mix of drugs and sensory deprivation. As he starts experimenting on himself, the drugs begin affecting his physical form. He starts experiencing real, physical regressions, transforming him into more primitive states of humanity. But it's not just, like, mental either, his body undergoes severe and shocking changes. The Void starts off simple. A police officer rushes an injured man to a nearby hospital, but soon things spiral out of control. Outside, a cult surrounds the place, and inside, something even more terrifying is happening. Patients and staff start turning into grotesque creatures. These monsters with their tentacle-like appendages and distorted faces are pure body horror. It taps into fears of transformation and the unknown, with like a surgery going wrong. Possession delves into the psychological and physical breakdown of a woman named Anna after a tumultuous breakup with her husband. But it's not your average breakup story. Anna has an affair with a very strange tentacled creature. The relationship is jarring and shocking, bringing the body horror front and center. The physical contortions and breakdowns Anna goes through, combined with her intimate relationship with this weird thing, are disturbing and unforgettable. In The Brood, Nola undergoes an experimental therapy after a rough separation from her husband. As she dives into her anger and trauma, she begins to give birth to small mutant children. These children, physical manifestations of her emotional pain, act on her violent impulses. The very idea of birthing these malevolent creatures and the gore associated with it is terrifying, bro. I mean, this is gross. This is a gross one. Toxic Avenger is a series about a young man named Melvin who gets exposed to toxic waste and transforms into the Toxic Avenger. While he becomes a sort of superhero for his town, his physical appearance drastically changes. He looks monstrous with distorted features, and throughout the series we see a variety of mutants and grotesque beings, each more shocking than the last. These movies blend comedy and horror, so it's, kind of like more funny than the other ones here. In spring, Evan, a young man grieving his mother's death, travels to Italy. There he meets and falls for Louise, a beautiful woman with a dark secret. Periodically, she undergoes grotesque and horrifying transformations into different creatures. Evan's love story is interspersed with these moments of horror as he grapples with Louise's true nature. The detailed transformation scenes showing Louise's body contorting and reshaping are the film's standout body horror elements. It's a film that's beautifully yet disturbingly intertwined romance with horror. The Bay is a found footage horror film that focuses on a waterborne parasite in the Chesapeake Bay, which turns the residents of a small town into hosts for its horrific life cycle. This parasite, a mutated form of an isopod, eats its host from the inside out. Victims experience these gross rashes and boils and other deformities. The terror here comes from the vulnerability of our own bodies. These parasites, taking control from within, turn ordinary people into grotesque versions of themselves. So this one has kind of like a theme of, like how fragile the human body really is. From Beyond is inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's story, and it revolves around a machine called the Resonator. This device stimulates the pineal gland, allowing for those nearby to perceive planes of reality outside our own. But there's a catch. When activated, it also makes the user visible to entities from those planes. The consequences are dire. Overexposure to the machine leads to grotesque physical transformations. Dr. Pretorius, an early victim, mutates into a monstrous form, while other characters experience the growth of new, disturbing sensory organs. This one's really interesting. I like the premise of this one. This one's really cool. It's like sci-fi and I just like this one. American Mary delves into the underground world of body modification. Mary, a medical student, becomes involved in illegal surgeries to modify people's bodies in extreme and often unsettling ways. As she gets deeper into this world, the line between professional surgery and personal vendetta starts to blur. The body horror here is twofold. On one hand, there's the graphic portrayal of surgeries, alterations, and modifications. And then on the other, it's about the psychological impact and obsession with changing someone's body, like body dysmorphia, But this one's really cool too. I've always found medical stuff to be really, really scary. I just saw Saw 10 last night as I'm recording this. And the medical scene was scarier to me than the actual traps. That kind of stuff is spooky to me. Afflicted tells the story of two friends traveling the world, documenting their journey. But things take a dark turn when one of them, Derek, has an encounter with a mysterious woman and begins to show signs of a strange illness. He develops superhuman abilities, but also suffers from an insatiable thirst for blood. His body undergoes painful and disturbing changes as he grapples with his new, monstrous nature. The film combines the found footage style with body horror, focusing on Derek's physical and mental transformation. Clown is a 2014 horror film directed by John Watts. The story starts with Kent, a loving dad who finds an old clown costume in a house he's selling, and decides to wear it for his son's birthday party. But after the party's over, he realizes he can't take the costume off. No matter how hard he tries, the wig, nose, and suit just won't come off. Now here's where things go from bad to worse. Kent begins to physically change. He starts getting hungrier and having dark, violent urges. As he dives into the history of the costume, he finds out that it's cursed and it might be turning him into a child-eating monster from Nordic mythology. The body horror in Clown is all about transformation. Imagine putting on something as innocent as a clown costume and then being unable to remove it. The horror gets ramped up when this costume starts changing who you are, both mentally and physically, your thoughts start to change. Kent's skin becomes more clown-like, his behavior becomes more erratic, and the cravings become more sinister. The film explores the terror of losing oneself, both in identity and humanity. Tetsuo the Iron Man is a Japanese cyberpunk film directed by Shinya Tsukamoto, released in 1989. At its core, this movie is about a man who starts to transform into a metallic creature after a bizarre accident. As metal pieces begin to grow out of his body, his entire existence becomes a living nightmare. The film is gritty, shot in black and white, and has a frantic industrial soundtrack. Its visceral imagery energy and frenetic pace make it a standout in the body horror genre. The series continued with Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer and Tetsuo the Bullet Man, where similar themes of man-machine fusion are explored, but with different characters and storylines. Excision, directed by Richard Bates Jr. and released in 2012, tells the story of Pauline, an awkward teenage girl with dreams of becoming a surgeon. She's an outcast at school, and at home, she's struggling with her overbearing mother and taking care of her younger sister who's sick. What sets this film apart is its dream sequences, which are both disturbing and beautifully shot. In these dreams, Pauline imagines performing grotesque surgeries, blurring the lines between her aspirations and some more disturbing fantasies. And then at the end, there's a really cool climax. This one I'm not gonna spoil, Released in 2014, Starry Eyes is directed by Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer. The movie revolves around Sarah, a young, ambitious actress in Hollywood who is desperate for her big break. When she auditions for a role in a film produced by a mysterious production company, she's willing to do whatever it takes to get the part. As she delves deeper into the enigmatic world of this company, she begins to undergo a horrifying transformation, both mentally and physically. The film's themes are about the lengths that people go to achieve fame and how the Hollywood machine can chew up and spit out those who are desperate to be a part of it. Her body decays, but there's some themes going on here and some symbolism too, you know? Hey, we finished layer 5. Let's get into layer 6, guys. We're like a little over halfway. Directed again by David Cronenberg, Shivers is set in a luxury apartment complex called Starliner Towers. The story begins when a scientist tries to create a combination of aphrodisiac and organ transplant for human use, but the experiment goes wrong. The resulting parasites look like a mix between a turd and a blood-engorged tick. It's disgusting. When introduced into a human host, these parasites increase the host's sexual desire and aggression. Infected hosts spread the parasite through sexual contact. The outbreak begins when one of the infected residents attacks others in the complex, and it quickly spirals out of control. The film culminates in chaos as the entire complex becomes infected, leading to an orgy of violence and sexual aggression. The movie ends with infected residents leaving the complex, hinting at a wider epidemic to come. Scary stuff. Yet another David Cronenberg classic. Rabid centers around a young woman named Rose, played by an adult film star, Marilyn Chambers. After a motorcycle accident, she undergoes experimental plastic surgery. Is that a Blade reference? The surgery inadvertently causes a mutation where she grows an orifice in her armpit, from which a phallic-shaped stinger emerges. This one is just so weird. I feel uncomfortable talking about this one. When she feeds, she sucks blood from her victims, transmitting a form of rabies. Those bitten, in return, become violent and affect others through their bite. The infection quickly spreads throughout Montreal, leading to martial law as the city becomes engulfed in chaos. The military and police attempt to contain the epidemic, with Rose's boyfriend trying to find and stop her. By the film's end, Rose is killed, spoiler alert, but the implication is that the disease has spread too far to be contained. Directed by Frank Hiddenlotter, Basket Case is a cult horror comedy film about a young man named Dwayne Bradley who lives in New York City, and he arrives with a mysterious wicker basket. Inside the basket is his deformed, formerly conjoined twin brother. Separated against their will by surgeons, the brothers seek revenge on the doctors who performed the operation. As Dwayne tries to establish a life in the city and even starts a romantic relationship, his brother becomes increasingly jealous and violent. The film mixes dark humor with graphic horror and is notable for its low budget. It has really creative special effects, you know? Antlers is a horror film inspired by a short story called The Quiet Boy by Nick Antosca. Set in the small town of Kispus Falls, Oregon, the story revolves around a schoolteacher named Julia and her brother Paul, who's the local sheriff. They become concerned about a young student, Lucas, who is taking care of his younger brother in secrecy. As they dig deeper, they discover that Lucas's father has become a monstrous creature due to a curse related to a Native American legend of the Wendigo, a spirit associated with cannibalism. The creature feeds on human flesh and spreads its curse to those it injures without killing. The climax is intense and harrowing, as Julia and Paul attempt to save Lucas and his younger brother from this creature and the curse. Taxidermia is a Hungarian film known for its disturbing visuals and a storyline that spans 3 generations. It's kinda cool. The movie isn't just a body horror, but also a dark commentary on Hungarian history and obsessions. The story begins with a sexually obsessed soldier during World War II, continues with his son who becomes a champion speed eater in communist Hungary, and then it concludes with the grandson, a taxidermist. Each generation deals with extreme body modifications or alterations, from grotesque sexual fantasies to gluttonous expansion to the art of preserving and displaying dead bodies. This film's kind of weird to watch, but I guess I should have known that when I made a video about a body horror iceberg. I should have known what I was getting into. Brian Yuzna's Society is a satirical body horror that critiques the American class system, like American Psycho. Bill Whitney, a Beverly Hills teen, has always felt out of place among his wealthy family and friends. As he started to unravel dark secrets about the people around him, he discovers that the upper-class society he's a part of is involved in perverse and grotesque orgies where they literally feed off the poor to maintain their youth and status. This film is infamous for its climax, known as the shunting scene, where the rich literally meld, twist, and contort their bodies together in this grossness. Directed by Neil Jordan, The Company of Wolves is a gothic fantasy horror film based on the werewolf theme. It's a retelling and deconstruction of the Little Red Riding Hood fable. The story is framed as a dream of a modern girl named Rosaline, where in a medieval setting, she listens to her grandmother's cautionary tales about men whose eyebrows meet in the middle, signaling that they're werewolves. The film is filled with dreamlike imagery, and transformations are symbolic of sexual maturity. Again, just really weird, bro. This one is like more than just the actual like horror. It's just like it's got like weird concepts. It's just like kind of weird, dude. Directed by Larry Cohen, The Stuff is satirical again, and it critiques consumerism. The plot revolves around a mysterious and highly addictive substance that bubbles out from the ground and is quickly marketed as a new dessert product called The Stuff. As people across the country become addicted, it's discovered that the stuff is a sentient organism that eats people from the inside out, turning them into like zombies. A former FBI agent, a young boy, and a junk food mogul team up to expose the truth about the stuff and to stop its spread. Alright, that was layer 6, guys. Isn't this so exciting? Let's get straight into layer 7, oh my gosh. Contracted is a movie that follows a young woman named Samantha, who, after a one-night stand, starts to exhibit alarming symptoms. She initially believes it's an STI, but it becomes clear that something far more sinister is at play here. Over the course of the film, Samantha's body goes through gruesome changes. Her eyes bleed, her nails fall off, and her flesh begins to rot. There are disturbing depictions of deteriorating physical condition, culminating in a horrific transformation by the end. This one is really hard to watch. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is like a classic story that's been done a bunch, so I'm not really sure which movie this one is referring to, so I'll just talk about the story as the original story. This story delves into the dual nature of humanity, the civilized, rational side versus the wild, primal side. The body horror aspect is primarily evident in the physical transformation of Dr. Jekyll into his sinister alter ego, Mr. Hyde. Every time Dr. Jekyll drinks the potion he made, he undergoes a grotesque and painful metamorphosis into Mr. Hyde. So basically, it's just like, he drinks a potion, he changes into somebody else. This one, I don't really know why it's here. Maybe there's like some cult movie that I missed out that I can't find or something, I don't know. The premise of Swamp Thing centers around a scientist named Alec Holland who, due to an accident involving a formula he was developing, transforms into a monstrous plant-like creature. This one is really terrifying to me. This one and Tusk, like those about just a person being transformed into something else against their will is like terrifying to me. I don't know why, but that concept is so like awful to me. Anyways, yeah, the horror here is awful, like in a good way. Antiviral, directed by Brandon Cronenberg, presents a world where celebrity obsession has reached such height that fans are willing to buy and get infected with the viruses that have infected their favorite celebrities, believing that this would bring them closer. It's like if Taylor Swift got some, obscure strain of COVID or something, people be lining up to get that. That some of those Taylor Swift fans are weird, bro. Some of those Swifties are crazy enough to do that, bro. Anyways, the body horror of this movie manifests as we see the physical ramifications of these infections. Sores and just these weird bumps and all this stuff, In this black and white horror called The Eyes of My Mother, a young woman named Francisca endures trauma in her childhood, witnessing her mother's violent death. As she grows up isolated on her family's farm, the lines between affection, loneliness, and morbidity blur. She dissects and dismembers bodies with the same precision and curiosity her mother, a former surgeon, showed when teaching her about anatomy. Yeah, this one's like, Tokyo Gore Police is a Japanese film set in the future where self-mutilation has become a trend, and a group of mutant rebels called engineers can transform any injury into a weapon. The movie is filled with over-the-top, gruesome transformations and battles. The body horror here is graphic, gory, and excessive. Limbs are severed only to become swords or guns, and bodies are mutilated in fantastical ways. It's a wild, bloody spectacle that both critiques and indulges in the extremes of body horror. A climate change horror film, The Thaw, is about a team of ecology students who discover that a prehistoric parasite has been released from a melting polar ice cap. And then the body horror comes in when the infestation scenes happen, where the parasitic worms invade and consume their human hosts from the inside out. The squirming, wriggling creatures burrowing into flesh and the subsequent effects on the infected persons play on the fear of losing control of one's own body to an external invader. This one's gross because it's, like bugs and worms and stuff, bro. Brain Damage is a film that revolves around a young man named Brian who becomes a host to a parasitic brain-eating creature named Aylmer. In exchange for a highly addictive, hallucinogenic blue fluid that Aylmer secretes, Brian allows the creature to attach to his brain and consume brain fluid. The body horror is present in the symbiotic relationship between Brian and Aylmer. As Brian becomes more addicted to that fluid that Aylmer makes, he loses more control over his body and his actions. So this one's kind of like a slow burn, Whew, that was layer 7, guys. Are we still having fun, everybody? Are we still having fun, everybody? If you made it this far, go join my Discord because you can talk to me and we do Among Us nights and stuff in there. It's fun. So yeah, go join my Discord. Begotten is an experimental avant-garde film known for its abstract imagery and its stark black and white visuals. The narrative is kind of elusive, but the film begins with a gruesome scene of a godlike figure disemboweling itself. I don't even want to talk about this one. This one is the themes personally to me are a little bit offensive, so I'm not really going to talk about this one. Go check it out if you want, I guess. It's really strange, and yeah. Street Trash is a cult horror comedy that is about a batch of toxic liquor called Viper that turns its consumers into puddles of colorful goo. The body horror here is both grotesque and kind of funny, People melt and explode and deteriorate in various imaginative and colorful ways. So yeah, it's kind of meant to be kind of funny, and it's also themes of critiquing homelessness, not critiquing homelessness, but raising awareness for it, critiquing the neglect of homelessness, I guess I could say. Okay, imagine being trapped in a body that's betraying you. Ware brings a fresh perspective to the werewolf tale by wrapping it in a cloak of a crime thriller. As the story unfolds in France, a family is brutally attacked, and all eyes turn to a strangely hulking man suffering from a unique condition. The agony and tension really come to fore during the transformation scenes. The human body is stretched and torn and reshaped in a visceral dance of pain and power, making you question where's the line between man and monster. It's a gut-wrenching twist on the classic werewolf transformation, challenging our sympathies and fears. Set against the grim backdrop of World War II, Frankenstein's army plunges us into the world of mad science taken to its extreme. A group of unsuspecting Russian soldiers stumble upon a hidden Nazi lab. What they find is both horrifying and tragically fascinating. Creatures stitched together from the fallen, melding man-machine and pure nightmare. These aren't just monsters, they're reflections of war's brutality. This movie really goes into how inhumane war can be. The ABCs of Death anthology is known for its wildly varied and often shocking takes on mortality. The Z is for Zygote segment is particularly haunting in its portrayal of body horror. It begins with a woman waiting for her husband's return, but as time passes, she harbors a secret inside of her. This one, I don't want to talk about. This one is not YouTube safe. It's gross, and yeah, it's about a zygote, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. Yeah, I mean, your imagination can do the rest, honestly. Imagine your regular fast food chicken place. Now throw in ancient burial grounds, vengeful chicken ghosts, and a healthy dose of dark humor. That's Poultrygeist for you. When a fast food chicken establishment is built on sacred ground, the spirits are not pleased. The chickens come back to life, and what follows is a zany, over-the-top display of body horror mixed with satire. Humans transform, merge, and explode in a symphony of gore and feathers. The film is This is literally the plot to Breaking Bad. Beach House is about a young couple, Emily and Randall, trying to fix their relationship with a beach getaway. Things get weird when they find another couple already at the house. It gets even weirder when a glowing fog rolls in and they eat some questionable seafood. The horror comes in when their bodies start reacting badly. They hallucinate, feel sick, and there's a creeping dread as they realize that something is really wrong. The scary stuff, worm-like things in their feet, eyes turning cloudy, and their bodies changing in super gross ways. Basically, some alien thing from the environment is getting inside them and messing them up. The film isn't just about gross-out moments, though. It's hinting at bigger fears, like our environment turning against us and the unknown dangers around us. This one makes you think, you know? In Assimilate, a classic premise is given a modern twist. The story follows a group of friends who discover that their small town's residents are being replaced by emotionless clones. This is the kind of horror that sneaks up on you, you know? The realization that the people you know and love aren't who they seem. The body horror is not just in the physical transformation into these duplicates, but also in the haunting idea of losing one's individuality, memories, and emotions. It delves into our primal fear of identity loss and the terrifying prospect of something sinister hiding in plain sight. VHS anthologies are known for their found footage horror stories, and VHS 94 is no exception. In the subject segment, viewers are taken into a world of twisted science and ambition. Here, a mad scientist is hell-bent on pushing the boundaries of biology and technology. The result? Terrifying biomechanical monstrosities. Humans are merged with machines in disturbing experiments, creating a grotesque fusion that questions the very essence of humanity and what makes somebody human, you know? Yo! Finished layer 8, guys? Layer 9, this is almost the last one. We're almost done, guys, don't worry. Imagine being in the serene beauty of the wilderness, with friends, and suddenly, everything takes a nightmarish turn. Farrell thrusts his characters into this horrific scenario. The wilderness becomes claustrophobic as a savage, infected creature begins haunting them. But the real terror unfolds when the bite of this creature leads to a brutal metamorphosis. With each bite and scratch, the victims begin losing bits of their humanity, transforming into something wild, unrecognizable, and very, very hungry. The chilling descent from friend to feral plays on our fears of infection and the thin line between man and monster, making you question, and really this one makes you think, what would you do if your best friend became the thing you fear the most? Esther seems to have it all. A great job, an active social life, and an adoring boyfriend. One night, whilst attending a house party with colleagues, Esther hurts her leg in the backyard on some industrial supplies. And she's alone when it happened, so she doesn't even realize that she has been hurt until much later, briefly inspecting the injury in the upstairs bathroom. After the party, Esther visits a doctor, who patches her up and wonders why she didn't feel the injury initially. Esther wonders too, but seems unconcerned about it. The next day though, while taking a bath, Esther becomes fascinated by the folds of her skin around her thigh. Her boyfriend, Vincent, finds out about her injury and also becomes concerned about how she didn't feel it when it happened. Vincent decides to test if Esther can feel anything by lightly touching her arm when she's not looking. She reacts to it normally though. At work, Esther impulsively runs into a filing closet and proceeds to cut herself further with a random piece of metal. Esther then asks her friend to come have a break, but her friend declines. Esther reveals candidly that she has just cut herself before, laughing it off. Her friend asks her to stay over at her place for the night, and then there, as Esther is taking a shower, her friend sees the extra cuts Esther made to her leg. Esther is indifferent to her friend's concerns. Anyways, it keeps going on. This one I couldn't really think of how to, summarize it, so I just kind of told the first half of the movie. It gets scarier, so go check this one out for yourself. After what seems like a harmless, fun-filled bachelorette party trip, Bite plunges into Casey's life, which slowly turns grotesque. The bite she sustains in this movie is no ordinary wound. It festers not just in her skin, but also seeps into the core of her being. It's really, really, really weird. Casey's once, familiar apartment becomes an alien wet landscape echoing with the drip of an organic menace. As she undergoes her horrific transformation here, it gets disgusting and Incredible Melting Man is a classic example of body horror. After an astronaut's exposure to radiation from Saturn, his body begins to deteriorate in a gruesome and disturbing manner. The audience witnesses the gradual, horrifying melting of his flesh, and he becomes a grotesque and deranged figure along the way. The movie doesn't shy away from showcasing the visceral, physical transformation, making it chilling and memorable in that classic, like I said. The story of The Beast Within revolves around a young man, Michael, who undergoes a nightmarish transformation triggered by a creature attack years earlier. His body undergoes grotesque changes with deformities, pulsating growths, and uncontrollable mutations. The film's focus on the physical torment and transformations of this protagonist's body adds a gruesome and unsettling dimension to the horror narrative. In Blood Glacier, a group of scientists in the Alps stumble upon a mysterious red liquid that has alarming effects on the local wildlife. The body horror element is evident as the creatures in the area undergo grotesque mutations, with their bodies merging into horrifying hybrids. Also, guys, I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot here, but I don't really know what else to say about these movies other than, they have grotesque mutations. So I apologize for that. But I don't really know how else to describe it. Especially these later ones, I've already said so much about body horror as a thing, it's hard to say it in new ways, Horror Planet, also known as Inseminoid, combines science fiction and body horror. It follows a group of astronauts who encounter an alien presence on a distant planet. The horror unfolds as one of the crew members is impregnated by the alien, leading to a nightmarish pregnancy filled with excruciating physical changes and grotesque transformations. Body Melt is an Australian horror comedy that is over the top and dark. The story revolves around a sinister health spa called Vimaville, which secretly administers experimental vitamins to its customers. These vitamins cause nightmarish and scary body transformations, with clients experiencing a range of horrifying mutations and changes. The film doesn't hold back on graphic and absurd depictions of these transformations. You're going to witness people's bodies distorting in unnatural ways, erupting with grotesque growths, and experiencing gruesome and often fatal consequences. The practical effects used to create these disturbing changes are a hallmark of this film. Okay. Layer 9 done? We're almost done, guys. Almost done. Meatball Machine is a film whose narrative revolves around a male protagonist who becomes entangled in a sinister and macabre underground world where alien parasites called necroborgs infect and take over human hosts. These parasites lead to a nightmarish transformation of the infected individuals, turning them into scary amalgamations of flesh and machinery, hence the name Meatball Machine. The film here showcases the graphic and surreal nature of body horror. It's a good, overall classic example of body horror. Limbs are replaced with mechanical appendages, skin is torn and replaced with cybernetic components, and the human form is twisted into nightmarish shapes. The plot of Mutant Girl Squad centers around Rin, a seemingly ordinary high school girl who discovers on her 16th birthday that she possesses mutant powers. These powers include a retractable arm blade, which she uses to defend herself against bullies. Rin soon learns that she is not alone, and that there are other mutant girls with unique abilities. Together, they form a group to fight against oppressive forces that threaten mutants. This one is lower on the iceberg because it really goes over the top, and it's kind of campy, but it's really it doesn't shy away from showing anything, Thantomorphos is a Canadian horror film released in 2012. The title Thantomorphos is derived from the Greek words thantos, meaning death, and morphosis, meaning form or shape, and as such, the film delves into the concept of physical decay and decomposition of the human body. The movie follows the life of a young woman living alone in her apartment. After an unsettling introduction during the opening credits, we're introduced to Laura, our main character. Laura is a deeply despondent individual, someone who has been so worn down by life that she navigates it without any real clear purpose. She lacks enthusiasm or happiness in anything, merely accepting whatever comes her way, including the terrible verbal, physical, and sexual mistreatment inflicted upon her by her boyfriend. This individual treats her with utter disdain, akin to someone stepping on repulsive waste stuck to the sole of their brand new shoes. It's abhorrent, yet Laura passively endures it. She refrains from asserting herself and rejects assistance or support even when it is extended to her. As this dismal existence continues its downward spiral, Laura begins to undergo unsettling physical transformations. Initially, bruises rapidly appear all over her body. Subsequently, Laura isolates herself in her home as her body progressively mirrors the decomposition seen in recently deceased organisms. Curse 2, The Bite, is a horror film released in 1989, directed by Federico Prosperi. The film is the second installment in the Curse film series and tells the story of a man who was bitten by a radioactive snake, leading to bizarre and horrifying consequences. The Yellow Sands nuclear base in Arizona has an unusual problem. The local snakes seem to be contaminated. According to a local individual with erratic behavior, these snakes are attempting to flee the area but are disoriented, leading them to gather in large numbers on the road. Instead of what could have been an ideal day for road cruising, the main characters inadvertently collide with and kill numerous snakes. It appears that some of the snakes used in the film may have been real, as they exhibited movement and even bled upon impact. I mean, I hope not, but it's kind of believable because this movie has such like a low budget. Interestingly though, when these contaminated snakes bite someone, peculiar transformations occur. Parts of the victim's bodies, such as their hands, tongues, and potentially other unseen areas, start to change into snake-like features. The film incorporates a variety of real snake species, alongside some notably unconvincing fake ones, including corn snakes, water snakes, rattlesnakes, rat snakes, gopher snakes, ball pythons, boa constrictors, and king snakes. The reason behind this unusual phenomenon, however, remains unexplained in the film. Layer 10 over, guys. One more layer, and this last layer only has one entry, so we're literally almost done. We're so close, guys. So close. Septic Man is a Canadian horror film released in 2013, directed by Jesse Thomas Cook. The film's plot revolves around Jack, a sewage worker who is tasked with investigating a contaminated water source in a small, isolated town. As he descends into the labyrinth sewage system, he becomes trapped and isolated from the outside world. The filth and decay around him mirror the transformation that he undergoes. As Jack's exposure to the toxic environment intensifies, he begins to experience horrific physical changes. His skin deteriorates, festering with oozing sores and ulcers. His body starts to break down, mirroring the vile and putrid surroundings he finds himself in. The stench of decay becomes unbearable, and his descent into madness becomes more pronounced. The film is relentless in its portrayal of Jack's suffering and disintegration. It explores the darkest corners of body horror as his body becomes a nightmarish landscape of decay and deformity. The audience is subjected to graphic and nauseating visuals that leave an indelible mark on the psyche. As Jack's mental state deteriorates along with his physical form, Septic Man becomes a relentless and nightmarish descent into the depths of horror. And with that, we are done, everybody. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. This one is probably going to be like closer to 2 hours. I don't really know right now I was recording it, but like probably a lot longer. Let me know if you guys like these longer ones. I think you guys do. According to my view counter, it seems like you guys really like the longer ones more. Let me know if you do. Show some support. Leave a like or a comment. Let me know what your favorite thing here was or what I did wrong, because you guys love pointing out what I do wrong in these videos. Join my Discord. Talk to me. Hang out with us. And have a great night, everybody. Jesus loves you. Sleep well.